Hello, you're watching 6 News on the Hour. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. The top stories we're following right now. Breaking now. Up to 10 people killed in the United States after a mass shooting at a Walmart in Chesapeake, Virginia. Just days after a separate mass shooting killed 5 people at a gay nightclub in Colorado. 3 days to go until the Victorian state election. More than a dozen minor parties aiming to hold the balance of power after Saturday, as former federal MP Craig Kelly is spotted. And New South Wales police launched an inquiry after 78-year-old Sydney activist Danny Lim was left with a brain bleed and a neck injury during an arrest. Good evening. We're following breaking news out of the United States right now, where up to 10 people have been killed after a mass shooting at a Walmart in Virginia. It happened in Chesapeake, where unverified reports claim the manager was the suspect. It's now believed the suspect is dead. Comes just 3 days after 5 people were killed, 17 injured after a shooting at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Walmart says tonight they're praying for people who are impacted and are working with law enforcement authorities, saying they found multiple people dead and injured after about a 30 to 40 minute period. The situation is ongoing. Stay tuned for more updates throughout the evening here on 6 News. Back home, in the Victorian state election is in full swing with 3 days to go until the state will find out whether we could have a minority government, 4 more years of Labor, or a Liberal government for the first time since 2014. Former federal MP Craig Kelly, who lost his seat for the United Australia Party back in May, has now been spotted in campaigning in the Liberal-held seat of Caulfield with candidate Matt Babbitt, the brother of UAP Senator Ralph Babbitt. The UAP is aiming to get the balance of power in the upper house, as they are not running in the lower house. Caulfield is currently a marginal seat, with 2 big challenges being Labor and Teal independent Naomi Coltman. Meanwhile, 6 News is speaking to a number of those minor parties who are trying to hold the balance of power tonight. We've got Ben Collier from Shooters, Fishers, Farmers, Warren Pickering from One Nation, and Lee Jones from Family First. You've got Jeff Borman as your current sitting MLC here in Victoria, and you've got, pretty decent vote here. Also in New South Wales, especially you've grown there since 2019. But here in Victoria right now, given there are so many other parties running, especially minor parties, is there room for another Shooters, Fishers, Farmers MP in the Victorian Upper House?
Yeah, look, I think there's room for 3 of us, to be honest. Look, we're a very common sense party. We're not far right, we're not far left. We sit pretty much in the middle of the 2 major parties, and I think we'd be a really welcome, opportunity for different people to get on board, learn a bit more about us. Yeah, so we've got a lot to offer. I'll be honest with you, Leo. Like I hunt all my own food. I either home kill it or I hunt it myself, and I'm really proud of that. But that's a proportion of my life, and the rest of my life anyway. I'm just a normal dad. I'm a school teacher. I'm a really normal person. But in that side of my life, I provide for myself, and I'm really proud of it. So absolutely not crazy right-wing gun nuts. We're very, very normal people. We're everyday people, and that's why we want to try and get into politics and make a difference. We're never going to remove that from our name. We're really proud of that. And I think that's something that people are going to get used to. We're definitely not going to change it. We're really happy. If people bypass us without knowing, we'd obviously ask them to do their research and learn a bit more about us. But we can't change people's opinions. We can change people's perceptions, though.
My initial intention in getting into politics was to make the changes that the regular working class Australian hasn't had the opportunity to have a voice for over the last few years. So that's what got me into One Nation in the first place, being the major representation of the working class community. And that's what encouraged me to run at the federal. And obviously that we haven't achieved the results and the desired outcomes that we were chasing. So needless to say, we run state. And I've been given the opportunity to raise the Victorian branch of this party, and I intend to do so to good effect. Look, I think largely across the board, as we've all realised, there was a large fracture of the vote. I mean, over 30% of Australians voted for minor and independents, which is, that's unprecedented in Australian history. So that's a good indication that people wanted to vote to affect change. They just didn't know how to vote to achieve it. And I think specifically One Nation, obviously, apart from the diluted voting pool, with Victoria, we had it was very hotly tested off the back of the last 2 years, and that's obviously about to occur at the state level again. Me personally, I don't have a public profile. Nobody knew who I was, but that's fine. But I also was self-funded and probably didn't get out as much and didn't get the media coverage that we would have liked in the build up to the Fed. We're finding ways to work around that now. We're working with different media outlets and whatnot to achieve those outcomes this time around. We're hopeful, honestly. We still only missed out on that last Senate seat by 19,000 votes. Yeah, obviously UAP beat us with the primary, but when it came down to, I think they beat us by about 40,000 with the primary. When it came down to, the number twos, we got really close. So, it's given us a lot of data to work off to enable us to target specific areas heading into the state.
For those who might remember the old Family First Party, are you guys still based on the same values? Are you the same party?
Yeah, very, very similar. In fact, myself and my colleague Alistair Cameron, who's running in the Northeast Metro region, led the back office campaign in the 2016 federal election, where we were very, very close to getting a Family First senator elected. He was just pipped at the post at the last minute by Jane Hume. It's the same campaign team. We've obviously got access to all our old membership lists and so on. So, yeah, a lot of the same people are coming back to the cause. They're delighted to hear that Family First is back. We're all a bit disappointed that the Australian Conservatives didn't continue. And just as an aside, those of us who are now Family First are driving it here in Victoria were the key drivers behind the Australian Conservatives campaign in 2019 as well. So there's actually good continuity of the team. And there's a fair few candidates who previously stood for Family First who are standing again. So yeah, lots of continuity despite the gap in between. And it's interesting that there was a vision back after the 2017 federal election to try and 16 federal election to try and bring more of these minor parties together. The Auscons did give it a go. Hasn't been successful, and it's been interesting to see there's been in a sense, a refracturing of that conservative minor party landscape. There's lots and lots of parties that have popped up. Few have any history like Family First. But we'll see what happens post the state election. I think we've seen a fracturing, and I won't be surprised if we see a sort of a re-merging and coming together of some of these parties, because there's a lot of similarity in the platform. And interestingly enough, what's different this time, I think, is that there's a great deal of cooperation between those of us that sit on the centre right part of the spectrum, given the size of the battle we have against the incumbent. Yeah,
so I know you mentioned it's a continuity there, but like in terms of it being the same Family First, do you reckon it is? Because I know one of the old Family First senators, Bob Day, I know he says it's like calling yourselves the Beatles is a completely new band, like they're not the same. So do you actually think it is formally the same party here?
It's certainly the same name, and we carry a lot of the same policies. Bob's not obviously involved in this one. What happened with him is obviously on the record. Obviously there's different people. No party is ever identical from year to year. You only need to look at the Labour and Liberal parties to see that they change and evolve over time. We are still pretty true to our core purpose for being. Not a lot has really changed in the major policy areas. Bob has his view. We wish him all the best. He's a good man. Was obviously critical in terms of getting the Family First name out there. What's interesting is, as we found in polling that we've had access to, that the Family First brand is still very well recognised and still very well appreciated. It's a good brand. We're proud to stand by it. I am a bit sceptical about the polls, but I do know this, that well over 30% of people in the polling, and I assume that this number is actually higher than we're told in the polls, but more than 30% of people will vote for a non-mainstream party in the upper house. And that means we are likely to see a larger crossbench. in the coming Parliament. And so I think that given that Dan Andrews doesn't have control of the upper house, there is an opportunity for parties such as ourselves to help get in there and I don't know, stop the worst excesses of the Dan Andrews government. And perhaps even if we can get enough numbers in there to begin to roll back some of the quite appalling social policies brought in over the last 8 years. And really push to repair some of the issues we've seen in the health system, in education and beyond.
A teenage girl has been sentenced to 12 months in detention after an attack on a pregnant woman with a pram, where she was attacked from behind, had her hair grabbed, and was pulled onto the ground in Perth, according to the ABC. The 15-year-old had been released on bail just 2 days before the attack. The teen saying she smoked drugs before she committed a string of violent crimes she pleaded guilty to. The victims were all female, aged as young as 11 to as old as 66, being described by Judge Hilton Quayle as all being alone and vulnerable. A protest has been tonight held at Surrey Hills Police Station in Sydney after the arrest of 78-year-old activist Danny Lim left him with a brain bleed and neck injury. New South Wales Police have now launched an inquiry after 2 officers were filmed allegedly throwing the 78-year-old headfirst onto the ground after claiming he did not comply with their orders. The Greens have called for an independent investigation into what happened. And staying in New South Wales, police are investigating after a suspicious fire at the home of Jordan Shanks-markovina, better known as FriendlyJordies. It's understood it was the second fire at the property in Bondi in the space of 7 days. Law firm xenophon Davis, which represents the YouTuber, political commentator and comedian, said he was safe and not at home at the time of the incident, claiming the house was firebombed. The property and a neighbouring house both sustained significant damage, with the crime scene established by police. And don't forget, from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday, 6 News will be live with coverage of the Victorian state election. It's not boring and it's not biased. We've got on the panel 6 News contributor and host of Between Parks Place and Capitol Hill, Stuart Jeffrey, and political commentator and host of the Matthew Hayne Show, Matthew Hayne, plus crosses to our reporters, and hopefully some candidates running as well. Best of all, we don't take ourselves too seriously.
I'm not a journalist, that's Leo's job, not mine.
That is you need to stop laughing.
Every seat, every candidate. You don't want to miss it. It's live on our YouTube channel from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, also on our website, SIXNewsAU.com. That is this Saturday. That is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, and on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. What's your company? Good night.